Good morning, dear brothers and sisters. We are continuing our teaching today as well about the reality that will be after Yeshua returns to this earth. We're reading in Zechariah, in chapter 8, verse 23. Thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days 10 men from all the nations will grasp the garment of a Jew, saying, "Let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you." So after the Gentiles will see all that God will do with the people of Israel, Yeshua comes down from heaven and he destroys the Antichrist. Now, all that will happen there, finally, they will understand that there is a God in heaven, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he is the real God, and that the people of Israel are the people of God. God chose them. And God will be with us in Jerusalem. And Yeshua will be with us in Jerusalem. And these Gentiles will understand it. And what will they do? 10 Gentiles will hold on to the corner of the garment of one Jew. And they want to go with him. God is with you. You're the chosen people. I want to be close to you. I want to learn from you. I want to hear from you. Because God is with you. It'll be hard for Jewish men in those days because there'll be 7 women hold on them on one side and 10 Gentiles on the other side. How will we be able to walk? Of course, that's all a picture. It's a symbolic picture of the reality that will be at that same time. And then what will happen is that the Gentiles that will remain will begin to gather and collect the remnant of Israel that's in the diaspora and bring them to the land of Israel. Let's see where it's written. Isaiah chapter 66. Isaiah, the last chapter of Isaiah 66. Verses 18 and 19 speak about what's happening exactly before the return of Yeshua and all that's connected with that war against the Antichrist. But it's written here really briefly, as we'll see. But in verse 20, he speaks about the regathering of the people, the Gentiles who will bring the remnant of the people of Israel from the diaspora and bring them to the land of Israel. I want to read verse 18. For I know their works and their thoughts. It's God speaking. I know their works and their thoughts. The time is coming to gather all the nations and tongues, and they will come and see my glory. So that's really briefly, it's parallel to what it said, all the people gathering for war against Jerusalem. It's in Zechariah chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. Also Zechariah chapter 12, 1, 2, and 3. But it's parallel to that, but it's really brief. So God is saying, their thoughts and their works, I will know them, they will gather them. They want to see my glory. So they will see when Yeshua coming down from heaven and destroy the enemies. And he will keep alive eyewitnesses of few. In 19, and I will set a sign among them, and I will send survivors from them to the nations. Why only survivors? Because all the others will be destroyed. Only there and here, God will keep for himself a few eyewitnesses who will come back to their peoples. And he says, I will send them to the nations, Tarshish, Put, Lud, Meshech, Tuval, Yavan, to the distant coastlands, who have never heard my fame, nor seen my glory, and they will declare my glory among the nations. So God will use those survivors of this horrible battle, where God is like stomping on grapes in a wine vat, and all of those armies being crushed, and on this river of blood going for over 300 kilometers. And they will see all this, and now they go back to their nations, and they see, and they say, this is what we saw. This is what happened. We saw the heavens open. We saw Yeshua coming down, and we saw the Antichrist being thrown to the lake of fire. Everyone was destroyed. It was all a lie. All we believed in was a lie. And then what does it say? Verse 20. And they will bring all your brethren from all the nations as a grain offering to the Lord, on horses and on chariots and litters and mules and on camels to my holy mountain, Jerusalem, says the Lord. Not just as the sons of Israel bring their grain offering in a clean vessel to the house of the Lord. So these Gentiles, they will collect all through every of these simple transport systems. I believe that in that time there will no longer be airplanes or cars. After all the earthquakes and destruction and things, all this advanced technology we have now, it's all going to be destroyed. We're going to go back and live like in olden times. Horses and wagons, with all this walking, slow life, closer to the ground. But the point is that they bring them in a holy fear, just like the people of Israel would bring their offering to the temple at the 3 pilgrimage feasts. And now they're bringing the people of Israel gently, with their property, with great glory and the fear of glory, and they bring them up to Jerusalem. We have an additional place here that speaks about this. It's in Isaiah chapter 11, verses 11 and 12. Isaiah 11. Then it will happen on that day that the Lord will again recover the second time with his hand the remnant of his people who will remain from Assyria, Egypt, Pathos, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamat, and from the islands of the sea. So God will now collect, regather his people, the remnant of his people, that is on all the diaspora. There's a great list here of all these different nations, and he will lift up a standard of the nations. He will lift up a standard. What's the standard? What's he talking about? You can see it in verse 10. In that day, the nations will resort to the root of Jesse, who will stand as a signal, a standard for the peoples, and his resting place will be glorious. So let's be reminded that Yeshua is from the house of David. David was a descendant of Jesse. Yeshua then is from the seed of Jesse. He's a descendant of him. And Yeshua, when he was crucified, his cross was like a standard. A standard is a stick that they would put a flag on, a banner on, or a Roman eagle on, all kinds of things. And this was their battle flag. That when the soldiers would look at it, they would march, and it gave them signs. It lifted up their moral, and it gave them the courage in the battlefield. So Yeshua compares his cross to a standard. And he also compared himself to that bronze serpent that was raised up on a pole in the book of Numbers. So Yeshua compares his cross in John chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, to that same banner that Moses lifted up in the wilderness. So therefore, every time when people come to faith in the Son of God, in Yeshua, they look then at that banner in their spiritual eyes. They look at that banner that's lifted up, Yeshua, who sacrificed himself for us. So in that day, the root of Jesse will be a signal to the people, says, rest in peace, be glorious. And it will happen on that day that the Lord will recover his people. So that God will gather his people to Jerusalem. Jerusalem will be the center. And all these nations will bring them to Jerusalem. And what's interesting to us now, for us, is verse 11. And then what happened in that day that the Lord will again recover a second time with his hand. The remnant of his people will remain from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, all that list. And he will lift up a standard to the nations. That's Yeshua, the standard, the banner. Believe in him, not Muhammad, not Buddha, not these other things. This is him. This is the banner, Yeshua. Believe in God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and in his Messiah, the Son of David, Yeshua. So he will lift up a standard to the nations. And they assemble the banished ones of Israel and gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And so the Gentiles do this. And they gather together all of the sons of Israel, all of our people, from the four corners of the earth. And so that's what will happen. The gathering of the exiles is part of the reality of that time after this war. If I'm already here in chapter 11, I want to read also the first verses of this chapter. Then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and the branch from his roots will bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. The Spirit that came down on Yeshua in the shape of a dove, and the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, and counsel and strength, Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord, and he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear, But with righteousness he will judge the poor, and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Yeshua will judge this earth with justice. And also righteousness will be the belt about his loins, and faithfulness the belt about his waist. Yeshua will operate in justice and faithfulness. And the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the young goat, and the calf with the young lion, and the fatling together, and the little boy will lead them. So there'll be peace in this earth also with the animals. And the cow and the bear will graze, and their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like an ox. And the nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child will put his hand on the viper's den. So a baby then can walk around and put his hand on the hole in the ground of a snake where the viper is, and the viper won't bite him. They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. And the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So in all of his holy mountain of God, all the animals, they will behave like it was in the Garden of Eden. There they didn't attack one another, they didn't eat one another, they didn't damage one another, hurt one another. So that's the way it'll be, again, on his, God's holy mountain. So these are the prophecies, the beautiful prophecies that are waiting for us. And we will continue to learn more prophecies in the coming days. So again, I wish all of us a blessed day by the grace of God. Shalom.